The idea of a company trying to appeal to younger, more hip audiences is an idea that's been around for ages, but seems that despite many various attempts, not a lot of companies seem to get it right. There are some attempts that did work. Take the most interesting man in the world, for example. It makes me want to drink Dos Equis more than this makes me want to eat Chips Ahoy.
When the shot is swishy, but you want that chocolate chippy.
You get the idea. Today, we'll be looking back at similar examples of what Chips Ahoy tried to do. A lot of these ads here I remember from personal experience, and by that I mean seeing these ads or coming across them on the internet when they were first let out. Also, the memes surrounding these ads gave them a lot of notoriety as well. A lot of people made fun of these things with good reason, as they're just piss poor attempts at getting more cash out of a younger audience. Now, suppose these ads did work and did increase sales from the desired audience. At the same time, they would end up leaving a huge internet-based stain on the company itself. It's profits over dignity, but that's not a totally new tactic for many companies, is it? To be fair, it does make perfect sense to go for a younger audience, as this allows you to have a clientele in the future. And also, young people understand tech way better than old people. But there are good and bad ways of doing that. We will basically be looking at the bad. I'm more so going to be talking about the ads themselves, as opposed to why the ads are bad. That's because a lot of them are bad, because just like I said earlier, they are made to trick younger audiences into buying or using the company's products. Thus, they all feel rather lackluster in the sense that there is no passion behind these advertisements and no real care. Just an objective and a desire to reach that objective, with money being the only thing that's stopping the people behind the ads from quitting. Long story short, they're relatively passionless for the most part, and suffered in the worst way possible because of that. Let's get started. I'm making a video on this topic because the creation of these ads meant that these companies had the potential to make a fun ad campaign that properly reflects the brand, but that could also be something creative and enjoyable. Something that you would not hate at first sight, but instead would remember and even be more likely to use their products because of it. But that, of course, did not happen, because if it did, this video would not exist. If anything, this video can stand as a reminder as to what makes good advertisement and what doesn't, or as in what to follow and what not to follow. The most avid ad I remember is a delivery dance ad from Grubhub, which was first uploaded to YouTube on November 16th, 2020. Talk about a bad year. The ad features great dance moves, hit music, and a great cast of characters, which actually have their own lore in the universe that was created by Grubhub. I found out about this ad through the memes that spawned from it in early 2021, so I was pretty late to the party by then, but I still got a ton of laughs from it all. I specifically remember this video in particular. It got my attention, and the rest is history. Something odd I noticed with this advertisement, besides everything else that's already wrong with it, is the fact that it doesn't really have a specific reference point to it. It's not like it mentions Among Us or that 2020 was a bad year, which are both two prevalent things about 2020. It just does its thing and tries to be hip all around, which makes it that much funnier to laugh at, not laugh with. Big difference there. I feel if anyone in my generation, which is Gen Z FYI, were to use Grubhub, it would purely be from word of mouth, not from the ads they released. Just my 2 cents there. The description of the video reads, "That feeling when you get a good deal on the food you love with Grubhub perks, so you have no choice but to dance." They put 2 spaces in between love and with, and they put when after that feeling when. This description will probably remain that way for a while. I'd imagine Grubhub would want to forget all this rather quickly. In terms of the actual animation, it seems fine, just very cookie cutter and corporate-like, which would make sense as they're trying to sell you a product. The animation does have a style to it, it's just very modernistic, and if anything is the bare minimum for a style. Next up, we have Kroger with their Lower Than Low Deals ad, which was uploaded on January 5th, 2021. And while not as notorious as the Grubhub ad, it also really wasn't as bad. While I'd rather see this instead of Delivery Dance, I would still rather see neither if I had the option. This ad also features dance moves, hit music, another great cast of characters, and like the Grubhub ad, deals on food. What a steal. Also, it has its own iceberg, which is something that the Grubhub ad has as well, apparently. I'll try and leave links to videos that will discuss that. It's the same idea, without actually referencing anything specific that was trendy at the time, and instead just trying to be hip all around. It didn't really work out. The irony here is that despite being meant for a younger generation, the only people who would actually look at this ad in a positive manner are the type of people featured in the ad, which at times can be anything but young. Unless they meant to go after millennials as well, even then I doubt it hit them either. The description claims that you will bust a move down the aisle from all the deals. As of now, that has yet to happen to anyone. If there was ever a basic or average example of companies trying to be hip, this would be it. It's not overly bad, it's just mediocre. Yes, it is pretty disliked, but it's also mainly just kind of boring. People really didn't care enough to hunt this one down, unlike Delivery Dance. I do like this ad's art style more than Grubhub's, as it does feel like more thought was put into it, but that's about the only positive I can say. It's just slightly better. As of today, Kroger still makes and releases ads with this style. It's just best to move on at this point. Now on to Chips Ahoy, and I don't know which is worse. The fact that they referenced Among Us pretty boldly in the advertisement, or the fact that they tried to reference loot boxes is in a positive light. You know, loot boxes, the very thing EA got sued for. I'm not sure when these ads were first released, but there is a compilation video, link in description, that's supposed to have every modern Chips Ahoy ad, at least modern at the time. It was released on July 26, 2021, so I'd assume the ads were released at least a week or two before. If anyone has any more info, feel free to let me know. Now to be fair, these are technically all different ads. You won't see them all together like this, but you cannot force me to go through every single one individually. So I'll just wrap them all up quickly like this. This started a smaller meme or joke even in the comments with a "when X but Y" quote. Some examples being when the cookies don't bust and skipping the commercials is a must, when there's a knife at your throat but you find a cookie in your coat, when you're cringing in pain but the chips are insane, and so much more. Again, if you want to read more or make some up yourself, I'll have a link in the description. Someone also said that these commercials are the embodiment of the "how do you do fellow kids" meme, and to be honest, that's 100% true. And it's also the same deal with pretty much all of these commercials. Now I would argue this animation style is the worst we've seen so far. It's even more basic than Grubhub's art style. Honestly, there's not even style to it, it's just plain basic 101 animation. Now on to Wendy's, I can't say it, I have more dignity than that. In a re-upload of the video, someone said in the comments that if Wendy's ever roasts you, then bring this up, they'll leave. Hell, if I made crap like this, I would not think I had leverage to roast anyone at all. Now I myself do remember seeing this ad air on TV many times, mainly on Fox watching Family Guy, so there is some personal history. That does not make it any more bearable to watch. Of course, the character known as the memer is the one that brought on all the attention for the ad, and is what separates it from being an average attempt to a piss poor one. If he was not included, and instead replaced with a character that was not nearly as bad, people would definitely be talking about this thing a lot less. Now I will admit, it does feel like more effort was put into this ad than some of the others we looked at so far, not just because it's live action, or maybe it is because it's live action, I'm just glancing over it. I do feel it's a more commendable effort in the way that they tried to make it look like they all truly adopted this stuff, and while they may have, they did it in the worst way possible. On top of this commercial, I personally remember a lot of other Wendy's commercials that tried to promote this character that I believe is just called the Wendy's girl, as there aren't really any other names for her. Okay, so side note, I actually tried to record this video right here for the video because I felt I should have 3 commercials. So I start recording it, and I fucking missed the part where he said it's a parody, in case you missed that. I did not read the description. I should have. For those of you who are wondering, I can't leave a link to this. Search up this video yourself, Wendy's commercial 2023 USA. You'll see exactly what I mean. This ad also features a character called the Behind Timeser, who, as you could imagine, says phrases that were pretty out of date when that ad was released. To be honest, the irony from that idea is off the charts. This ad is not the worst we've looked at so far, but it is pretty low. There are some things worse than it, but there are plenty that are better. Now we got Coffee That from EB Games. This is more so an honorable mention, as it's more so trying to fit in with the Call of Duty community than it is with younger people, with the aforementioned Coffee That demonstrating that fact pretty well. GameStop Canada uploaded this ad on December 16th, 2014, because EB Games is almost like a branch of GameStop for information. And of course, if you know anything about this ad, you'll know that things went downhill from there. A very good point that someone in the comments of the ad mentioned was that it's so funny how clearly the 2 customers were intended to become popular meme-tick characters in the vein of the Old Spice guy or that most interesting man in the world. Instead, the public completely threw those 2 to the wayside and adopted the salesman as their chosen one. That's organic brand popularization. You could not manufacture that. I 100% agree with this statement. The 2 men who are basically acting like children in this commercial were the ones you were supposed to remember. But thanks to a fault in the line delivery, the opposite is what happened. This is also why I don't think we ever got a commercial involving those 2 again. If there was one, I have not been able to find it, as I'd imagine it would go undocumented. That would be due to the fact that the public probably felt one ad from this duo was enough. To be fair, this ad is more of an honorable mention because it doesn't exactly show the same patterns that all the other ads did. If it had one thing going for it, it's so bad it's good. The build-up is relatively over the top, and the Coffee That is such a shitty payoff, it works way more than it should. So at the very least, you can laugh it off well enough. On to the topic of referencing things in an advertisement, I feel that not referencing something can make an ad feel unfocused, even if it does mean that actually referencing something would make it that much worse. It's kind of like how some people think that being loud and obnoxious is funny and will make people laugh as opposed to making an actually good joke. I'm not saying these companies did make a good joke, but I feel it would seem that much more professional if they had some referencing point as opposed to just trying to be cool all around. But then there's of course the argument that due to referencing certain things like Chips Ahoy did with Among Us, it makes the advertisement that much worse. I mean, this is pretty crappy. Overall, Overall, I think the idea of trying to be hip is a lose-lose situation. There is no right way to do something like this. It's more of a matter of pick your poison. So how do you avoid this? What you do is not try to be hip, but instead make an advertisement that better reflects your own brand. Back to what I said earlier about Dos Equis is a prime example of this. With the most interesting man in the world, you have a totally made-up character that looks and feels classy. Therefore, you associate Dos Equis with style and classiness, which is a way better target to reach than just hipness. Or with Old Spice and Terry Crews. These ads scream that Old Spice is a brand for men first and foremost, but is also associated with strength and muscle. Again, way better targets to reach instead of just going for hipness, even if they are at times allowed. To simply restate, these ads are reflective of what they offer. These other ads are not. I don't think it really needs to be spelled out. Also, these ads are just way more fun. The jokes and memes that stem from these may be stale now, but they perfectly represent the idea of companies missing the mark when it comes to current day culture. Instead of remembering these ads fondly and in a happy light, the internet swooped in and flung whatever they spat out right back at them in the worst way possible, through dislikes, comments, and of course memes. This of course is definitely not the last we'll ever see of this phenomenon, and it may not even be the last time these companies try stuff like this, but I know for a fact that when this stuff does happen again, the internet will try and set things right. But at the end of the day, these are all uncreated decisions made by some high up executive, and with that stigma, it can make it that much harder to appeal to regular people. Some companies can hit the mark while others land way off. It just takes creative thought and proper execution, and also knowledge of what to associate your brand with. These past ads have had none of that. At the very least, they were informative enough to explain what they are or what they're trying to sell, but that comes with the downside of either being generic or just flat out terrible. And while they may be informative about what they offer, the ads do not reflect what they offer. If I had to rate these ads, how would I rate them? Well, we can't do an A through F tier rating system, as none of these ads are even C worthy. This is more so if I was forced to watch one, which would it be? Well, we can put
Copy that
at the top, because again, it had the advantage of being so bad it's good. Next, we will put lower than low, as it's not overly bad, just mediocre. Next, we have the memer, and the only thing that really saves it from a lower rating is the fact that it looks like they generally tried to make something worthwhile, even if it was a missed attempt. Now, I was going to put Grubhub and Chips Ahoy at the same level, but I'm actually going to put Chips Ahoy above Grubhub for a key reason. Their ads are way shorter. Most of them span about 15 seconds long, while Delivery Dance is a full 31 seconds. Because of that, Chips Ahoy is below the memer, and Delivery Dance is at the bottom of it all.